Yes, we are live now. Hello and welcome to Product Lessons, a podcast channel where we talk to first time entrepreneurs and learn from their lessons of their entrepreneurial journey. Today, I am excited to have Deobrat with me. Deobrat is a second time founder whose first company, Gaze Metrics, was sold to Sisomos a few years ago. And then he found his second company, Backstage.Army, and I'm thrilled to know his journey. Always very excited and look forward to entrepreneurs who have multiple gigs in their under their belt, and Deobrat seems to be one of them. So please join hands with me to welcome Deobrat. Deobrat, welcome to Product Lessons. How are you doing today?
Doing quite well, Ravi. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm not someone who usually talks about my work or my life in general in public, but
Seriously,
yeah, I tend to do this more in intimate and private sessions with a small number of folks. So I'm
uh,
excited to be doing this for the first time in a public setting.
thank you. Then it's a privilege, huh? And let me tell you, audience, I did not know Deobrat. We only connected through Facebook, and I found him to be a very successful entrepreneur. And then I just approached him, and Deobrat obliged to my request. So yeah, if you don't do this and you're doing it, so I feel very special, Deobrat. Thank you. um,
Yeah, successful is a loaded term. I don't know if I'm there yet. Let's see.
Sure. I mean, yeah. So wherever you are, it is still there are lots of people who aspire to have been able to found their own company. So you are at least, I'm sure you have people who are role models ahead of you, but everybody is in a ladder. There are people who are below you, and then there are people that are ahead of you. So you're a role model for a lot of people who are not there yet. Okay, who still dream to found their own company. So with that, let's get started. So I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, and and it clearly says that I think you also wear it like a badge of honor, right? You say you are a founder that codes. Um, how much of it is an advantage as a tech entrepreneur if you're a founder and you can also code?
I think everyone's background is an advantage in its own right, depending on what you're good at. So if I could be someone who is like um, a salesperson who is a founder, right, or a marketer who is a founder, um, I think whatever skills you have, you got to use them to your advantage and figure out how it fits into your own company. Having said that, I think given the space that we are in, given that when we say startups, it's almost synonymous with tech startups in general. It is definitely a massive advantage because as a tech founder, you can code your first version yourself and get it out and get some user feedback very early on. You don't have to wait out building a product,
Right.
and getting user feedback. So it's definitely helpful in that regard. But as I said, I think it's not a massive disadvantage if you don't know how to code. You can always find great people to partner with. There are so many no code tools available these days. You can basically rig something up really quickly and start getting user feedback.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, we will talk about also non tech entrepreneurs and how could they get some advice from you. But let's, before we get into media stuffs, very curious to know about your career trajectory. Maybe you could begin with your education, and then how it shaped into your tech entrepreneurial journey as well.
Hmm. So I've always been very curious about how the world works, right? Starting with, and then this again me connecting the dots, looking backwards in time, right? So I was always someone who would tinker with physical stuff. I remember I was 7 year old when I tried to build a steam engine. Obviously, it was a colossal failure. Burned myself a little bit. But but I was always someone who tried to understand how the physical world is working around me, right? And then it kind of naturally led me to the path of uh, becoming an engineer. right? So it wasn't that someone forced me, like, most people in India, like, you have to become an engineer or a doctor or something like that. That didn't happen to me, luckily. I naturally found my path towards becoming an engineer. And at at some point, I think in my like right before my high school, I discovered um, the internet, and that massively fascinated me, right? And then that was like, okay, in order to use the internet, I use a computer. How does this thing work? Right? And try to understand that. And I read that computer is an electronics machine. So I was like, okay, I need to understand electronics first. So I in my 11th and 12th, I studied electronics. I dropped out of biology and second language, and I studied electronics instead. And I think that was one of the best decisions that I've ever made, looking back in time, because that basically allowed me to look at computers in a very very raw fashion. Like even today, when I write a line of code, I can basically see um, how it's actually getting executed on the processor, right? And that level of clarity obviously helps massively when writing performant applications and stuff. Um, Anyhow, so during my engineering, um, along with some friends, we built some simple network software tools. We started selling them to cyber cafes and colleges, so that kind of took care of pocket money. Um, and right out of college, I joined one of my professors
So
startups.
what do you mean by network software tools?
Um, so basically, this was way back in 2001, 2002, right? And so right after 9/11, internet security had to be taken seriously, and the government had instituted a lot of rules at that time. So if you remember, at that time, cyber cafes used to be all the rage. I think in
Yes,
some parts of India that still is the case.
right,
But even in big cities, I was in Bombay at that time, and that was the primary way someone could get connected to the internet.
right.
And so what we did was, our thought was that if the administrator who is sitting at the front desk can see what everyone else is doing, they would be able to sort of report it to authorities or whatever that is, right?
Right.
So in our mind, monitoring was super important. So we built this tool called CyberJack, and we asked them to use it, and they were like, no, 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 this is not what's interesting. What we want is to basically manage how many printouts has someone given, or how much bandwidth is someone using, right? So that we can
Mm,
control that. They were like, for security, we take their name and phone number, and that's enough, right?
right,
Because that's all that the government cares about, right? So there's obviously a massive disconnect between what we perceived to be the need, and then what
right.
their actual need was. So anyway, we ended up building it, and we started selling to some cyber cafes in Bombay.
I remember during those times there used to be cyber cafes which had software like Sifi's software.
Yes,
Okay, so Sifi would install it, and then they would give you a login for every monitor, and then Sifi would have its
correct.
own accounting software usage analysis and stuff like that. I still remember
Right, right.
a yellow, yeah, yellow. But but before that, I mean, how did the idea or the seed generate? So did you have a set of friends who were entrepreneurial to see a gap in the market and build something by the side? Because not everybody does it, especially in 2001 when you're talking about entrepreneurship was still a distant thing, unlike today. But how did you, I mean, jump into looking at a problem and trying to solve it and then sell it commercially? How did that bug happen?
So this is, I feel like maybe it's a thing of privilege, but having grown up in Bombay, and I still call it Bombay. I know it's the politically correct term to use is Mumbai. But growing up over there, I think hustle is in the DNA of the city, right? And everyone is trying to make their own mark. Everyone's trying to do something on their own. Um, so growing up there, at least in my generation, we didn't see it as something being extraordinary, right? Trying to start something on your own. It's something that everyone did every once in a while, right? At least in the vicinity that I was in, right?
Mm.
Most people try to do things on their own. Small businesses, that happened all the time. So at that time, it didn't feel any sort of different from regular life.
Okay,
Just that it happened to be in software, right?
got it.
Yeah,
But did all of your batchmates were like that? I'm sure not, isn't it? I mean,
no, no, that's
uh,
not. Yeah, yeah,
so
absolutely.
it takes a certain DNA to start thinking about solving problems and trying to offer it commercially, isn't it? Um, all
Right,
right.
right. I was just to be really honest, I was just a 17-year-old kid. I didn't know, like, I didn't know the first thing about starting a business or you know anything of that nature. It was just it felt intuitively right to do it, and I did. There was no grand plan or anything of that nature.
Got it. Exactly. Just as with anybody, any 17-year-old. And then what happened? So did you sell it to a lot of cafes then, or were you able to succeed, or how did it scale to a point where you would say that we are happy, we made
Yeah,
money?
it uh, it funded college pocket money to a certain extent.
Okay.
That was it.
No,
Yeah, nothing massive.
okay. No, first I heard it funded college, and then you added pocket money. Okay, cool.
Well,
Then
so
what
it
happened?
funded some of college, right?
Ah,
Not all of it.
nice,
It funded some of it.
nice,
Yeah.
nice. But did you have your licensing models and stuff like that, or was it one time installation fee?
So it was one-time installation and then AMC, which used to
Oh,
be the model that every company did back then,
got it.
right?
Yes, and then MC. Lovely. Okay, then
Because
what happened?
we didn't have any servers to sort of do software updates with and stuff like that. So we would basically go to every
Okay.
place with a CD and install it. And every now and then they would call us and say, ये bug आया है, ये नहीं चल रहा है, this is not
Okay.
working, that's not working, and you go and
There, there's no concept of SaaS then also, no?
absolutely, absolutely. Like we ourselves didn't have access to the internet beyond cyber cafes.
Oh. Okay. Okay. Then what happened?
Yeah, then college ended, and folks decided to join MS programs in the US, and people left. And I decided to work with one of my professors. He had his own startup. It was called Team Excel at that time.
Okay.
It later got acquired by another company. Um, and They were trying to basically build ERP solutions for educational institutes, so schools, colleges, universities, and such. So I joined essentially as a developer, but I ended up doing obviously development, then marketing, then sales. I did a bunch of things over there. It was a lot of fun. I stayed there only for about a year, but it was so much fun. I learned a lot. My professor sadly is no more, and yeah, he passed away a couple of years ago. But I learned a lot from him on how to run a company, how to make decisions, and a whole bunch of other things.
So by that time, were you in the process of, was your mindset to learn so that you can build something of your own, or entrepreneurship was not yet a fully framed idea in your mind?
So I knew that I wanted to do something on my own for
Okay.
sure,
Okay.
but I didn't know how to go about doing it,
Okay.
right? Um, and I guess I wasn't wise enough to use the internet to learn from other people that much. And
Right.
even on the internet, there wasn't much of material available, right? Like material that you could trust from real folks. And learning from other people was the only real option.
Right.
People in your network.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what I was doing. But I wouldn't say I was like super deliberate and focused on, okay, this is, I'm going to do this job just to learn this particular thing. I think that
Right.
happened by osmosis.
Okay. Then what happened after a year working there?
Yeah, so he had other partners, and we had some issues related to equity. Like I was promised something else, and I was getting something else.
Right.
And I was like, I'd rather keep this relationship. I don't want to spoil this relationship. So I parted ways to stay friends with my professor. And in a I think it was in a state of desperation because I thought I needed a job. I joined. Um, I won't take a name, but I joined. If you're curious, you can go and look at my in LinkedIn. I don't know if I still have them over there, but I joined a services company, um, uh, and it was the worst experience of my career. Um,
I've worked
yeah,
there. I
yeah,
worked there only for 4 months in Noida.
yeah. Oh man, yeah, very similar. I think you know, around 2 months mark, I was like, I went to my manager. I'm like, I can't work here. I'm sorry, right? I apologized because in my mind, like I've made a commitment to work for this company, and I'm not able to keep that commitment. I was just too bored, honestly, because there was nothing interesting to do. Um, yeah, so I left, and I tried to start on my own again. At that time, I was looking for um, things to do, and I found this railways project for Western Railway, and they wanted to build some software for signal systems. Um, and while I was in conversations with them, I got interviewed by Microsoft, and Microsoft had always been like a very very attractive company for me. I was massively infatuated with Bill Gates and what he represented. So I was like, yeah, of course, Microsoft. So I went and worked at Microsoft. I moved from Bombay to Hyderabad for the first time in my life, and it was a massive, massive culture shock. Bombay is very different from rest of India,
Hmm.
um, and like I felt like I'm in a different country altogether. Um, but anyway, so Microsoft was a very interesting experience. It felt like a massively funded startup, lots of
Hmm.
fun things to do, plenty of money available. You had really, really smart people around you. You could team up with them, build things on your own. Yeah, lots of interesting things happened over there.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and but I ended up so in 2008 financial crisis. My entire team from Microsoft was eliminated. So we were 13 people in our team, and the team was basically said, this team is no longer required of sort. So we all
I
left.
didn't. I thought I didn't. I didn't know this. I didn't realize even Microsoft was impacted because
Oh yeah,
I.
oh yeah. I think if I'm not remembering it wrong, I think it was around 5,000 positions that were eliminated
Wow.
globally.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, and then so after that, I went and joined Electronic Arts, the
Hmm.
gaming company, again in Hyderabad. Um, and EA was very different from Microsoft in so many ways. Um, not to say that it wasn't an interesting place to work at. It was a great place to work at. Lots of challenging problems to solve and stuff like that. But it was very, very 9 to 5.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
like you couldn't work remotely. There was no concept of taking your work home. Um, like you couldn't even bring in a thumb drive into the office. It was very, very secure,
Correct.
uh, paranoid sort of environment um, at that time. And so yeah,
Was it was it
not
was EA very sought after at that time? Because it was a gaming company, but it was also one of the very popular ones. No.
right. So EA in India was still very small at that time. I don't know how big they are now, but at that time it was fairly small. I think we were overall less than 25 developers
Is it
in
okay?
EA, in India, in India, like in Hyderabad, essentially. Um, and it was obviously a very, very attractive job as such, paid well, lots of interesting work. Um, but it was difficult to hire for EA. So when I was leaving, uh, my boss told me, hire your replacement and then go. And I remember interviewing for 2 months straight and not being able to hire someone to replace me.
Mm.
It was just very, very, the bar is really, really high. At
And
least it used to be. I don't know if it is.
what kind of a developer were you?
What kind of so I
Like
was
full
basically
stack?
working on.
Yeah.
So at that time, it was the definition of a developer was a developer, right? There was no front end, back end. Like this
Okay,
was way back in 2000,
okay.
2008, 2009 types, right? Um, yeah, everyone did everything. Uh,
Mhm.
and if you couldn't do everything, then you're not as much a developer.
Right.
At least that was the perception back then. So I did a lot of stuff like so most of my work involved writing middleware actually
Mm.
for games and automation platforms that we built inside EA for other studios to use. Um, and so during EA is again when I try to start something new
Yeah.
because it was 9 to 5, lots of time at hand. What do I do? Right.
Right.
So I tried to start a um, IPTV kind of a service, right? So I wanted to build set-top boxes of sort, which connected to the internet and streamed media from the internet instead of satellite dishes,
And
right? It's
streaming was still I mean, I remember live matches would be streamed and stuff like that at that time. Okay, it was illegal, uh, but only that the real streaming content that we have today, the Netflix etc. of today, was not yet mature then.
not really. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So my thought was that internet was sort of beginning to get ubiquitous at the time, and I imagined that at some point people will get tired of watching brainless programming that existed on satellite TV, um, and video on demand would be a mainstream thing, right?
Right.
And I thought, let me start with the client end first. Let's build a really smart set-top box that could connect to the internet and output to the TV, and people would buy this device and connect to their TV and stream content from the internet.
Right.
Um, so it was funny. I actually contacted um a salesperson at Intel, and so
Mm.
Intel has these boards, system on chip boards,
Right.
um, and so I said I want 100 of these um, for prototypes, and I can't pay you. You got to give it to me for free.
Seriously.
uh, yeah, and I think so. So the sales, I convinced the salesperson that this is a massively valuable application that I'm trying to build, and it's going to be the future. He bought into it completely. Of course, because the premise itself was not wrong, right? Like
Mm.
the internet was becoming ubiquitous, programming on TV was becoming boring,
Right.
and everyone could see that, right? So naturally there was a solution that was needed, um, and so he heard from this guy who is basically taking a meeting in his car from his office's
No,
basement.
but Intel does not deal with retail customers like you. Okay, I mean, what kind of a sales guy was he, or how did you get in touch with them? Like, did you go to their office or something, or?
It was actually completely random. I submitted a form online that basically said contact us.
Okay,
Submitted a form online. This guy calls me and I'm like, I would like to meet you. I have this interesting thing that I'm working on. So he comes over. I was at EA, so I went out of the office, sat with him in my car, and explained to him what I was doing. And I was like, you got to give me a few test boards so I can build this and start testing it out with a few houses. Um, and he's like, we don't really do this. We don't really do free things and stuff like that. I was like, go talk to your managers and tell them. So he managed to get an exception for 100 boards um, to do this.
and what was your state of mind? You were entirely convinced that this will build into something big.
So I was convinced that it was a worthy idea to try.
Okay. Hmm.
I didn't know, like with almost everything that I've started. Um, it has always been that I do see that there's a problem,
Right.
and at least with this one, I knew that it was definitely a big space that is going to exist, right?
Right.
But whether or not I was going to make it, of course, no one knows, right? And I wasn't. I definitely wasn't as confident as I am today with my latest company. Um,
But were
so
there
so
were there were there existing players in the market who were also exploring streaming content at that time?
Microsoft for one, did have a bunch of things. So they were partnering with AT&T in the US to do something of that nature, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so they had their media services division where they were trying to do things like this. But mass production and doing it for like consumers directly instead of working with a provider, that wasn't a thing. Like for
And
example, today you see an Amazon Fire Stick, right, or an Apple TV device.
right.
Um, so a consumer form factor wasn't something that existed at that time.
Got it. They were ugly looking boxes. Okay.
Right,
And
right. So it was more like what you see in Airtel Extreme today, right? But again, very very like it wasn't Android. It was like very custom software written specifically for that device,
got it.
and that was happening in some developed markets, not for like general masses at all.
Got it. But did you have like close knit friends who were brainstorming this idea, or it was entirely your idea within your mind?
So I did have one colleague at EA who was essentially a game developer, right? So
Right.
so the thought that we had was we would basically use a custom Linux build and basically build it as a game console, essentially, right? Which has local content, which has local apps, plus it connects to the internet to stream media.
Right.
Yeah, so it was just the two of us.
Okay.
And before it could really materialize into something, I got a call from this very interesting dude named Sachin Duggal. Um, so Sachin today is the founder of Builder.ai. But back then he was running a company called Nibio.
Uh-huh.
Um, and what really piqued my interest in Nibio was what they were doing was they were actually building a desktop as a service solution, right? So you have
All right.
Windows desktops running in the cloud, Windows apps running in the cloud, and you could access them from thin client devices. So they have partnered with HCL to build these thin client devices, which were really cheap. You could buy them for 2,000 rupees or something.
Like
And
iPads or something, or
it was based on an Intel mobile chip, um,
okay.
Intel Atom, I believe.
But
Um,
these were handheld devices, right? I mean,
no. These were sort of like
on,
mini micro desktops of sorts.
okay, okay,
Yeah. I guess not much bigger than this book, right?
okay.
Really tiny. You could buy them for a really cheap price and hook them up with a monitor and a keyboard, and you had a proper Windows machine at that time because Windows actually ran in the cloud, right? So the idea was that you didn't buy Windows, you licensed Windows, you rented Windows, and you rented Windows applications, right? So let's say heavy applications like Photoshop and stuff like that. So this was subscriptions, software subscriptions before software subscriptions were a thing. Um,
Yeah, got it. Okay.
and so the thing that interested me the most was that this was very similar to what I wanted to do, except it was not streaming media at first. It was doing business solutions first. And then when I spoke to Sachin, he was like, yeah, we could totally extend it to include media services and stuff like that. And I was like, of course, let's do this.
Right.
So I went and joined him. So I moved from Hyderabad to Gurgaon and started working at Nivio.
So you applied for
Uh,
Nibio, or did Sachin somehow came to know
no,
about
no,
you?
no. So Sachin somehow found me. I've kept asking him since then, like exactly how he found me.
But
He's never
have
given
you
me
been
like a
talking? Like how
with
I mean, were you very social about like sharing your ideas about what you were up to? Okay,
no, no, no. So one suspicion that I still have is that maybe it went around from Intel somewhere. How I don't know.
got it,
Could be
got
because
it,
they were also using an Intel Atom chip, and yeah, with HCL, that's what they were building.
got it.
So it was a co-branded device. Um, yeah, so I mean, obviously, I did not end up doing my own company at that time, but at Niveo is where I found my co-founders for the next company,
Ah,
and
nice.
yeah, so I met Saurabh and Divine over there. I'd hired both of them to work with me at Niveo, and yeah, then essentially we used to walk around and brainstorm on what to build and stuff like that because by this time internet had like solidly arrived.
Got it,
It had become truly mainstream in India, right?
got it.
And you had TechCrunch and all that stuff. Like, there was lots of buzz going around.
Right.
Head starters, startup weekend, right? Like, it was in full swing by this time. So this was 2011 or so. So I remember in 2011, around November or December, is when a startup weekend event was happening. So Mahesh Murthy tweeted about it,
Mm,
and I used to follow him on Twitter. So I was like, okay, I want to go through this, and so I spoke to Saurabh and Debayan, and I was like, let's go. And they were like, no, no, I don't know, and they were dilly dallying, and I said, I've already bought the tickets, right?
mm.
And they're like, okay, if you've already bought the tickets, let's go. And then I went and actually bought the tickets.
Okay.
So we went there, and that was a very um, interesting experience. So we ended up building a prototype for um, a payment solution where you could go to a restaurant and you could pay them. So it was like kind of like Paytm. So you basically paid them without giving them your credit cards.
Right.
Um, and So initially, when I wrote a blog post about this a while ago, um, but the whole thing was that when we initially pitched the idea, we didn't get enough votes uh, to get the right to demo. Right? But we were like, let's build it anyway. So we stayed there. We ended up building it. A reporter from Times of India was there. He was talking to all the teams. He ended up writing about us. Uh, not more than the teams that were actually selected for participation. So once he wrote about us, the organizer. So Pankaj Jan was the organizer. He was like, "Now you got a demo." So we ended up demoing it, and that's when it felt like it was for real. Like we could actually do something together.
Right.
So I got a call from Abhishek Gupta. He was basically running T Labs at the time. T Labs were just getting started up. Um,
T Hub or T Labs?
T Labs.
What was T
So it's
Labs?
Times Internet.
Ah, Times Internet. Okay, got it. Hmm.
Yeah. So T Labs was their accelerator, right?
Okay.
And so Abhishek was running it, and Abhishek called and he was like, I saw your solution. It was actually pretty complete. Would love to meet you guys. So we went ahead and met him. And then between this time, like between the time the event happened and when we actually went and met him, we'd done some research on the payment space, and we discovered like so many regulations. And we're like, boss, ye to nahi hoga. It's too the just the regulatory aspect of it was too cumbersome to
Exactly.
overcome. Right? It was
Yes.
not a tech. It was not going to be a tech company. It was going
Right.
to be a sort of regulations breaking wala company,
Yes.
breaking or making or whatever that be.
And that was a
Uh,
frustration. That was a frustration for a lot of businesses because it took many years for regulatory blocks to be removed. So the world of today that we have for payments and the world then was very very different. No.
oh yeah, massively different. Just yeah, you're absolutely right. Like in the last 10 years, the amount of things that have changed. when it comes to payment is insane. Like it's unbelievable. Like 10 years ago, if someone would have told me that this word would exist today, I wouldn't
Right.
have believed them.
Right. Wow.
It's insanely different. So all three of us we were all tech founders, and we were like, a lot of this is just operations, and none of us are good at this. None of us enjoy this. We're not going to do it. So we met Abhishek, and we were like, we're not doing this. And he's like, then what are you guys doing? So by this time, what we were tinkering with was
So did you
um,
already leave Nivea, or how was it?
so so we had decided to leave. I had resigned,
Right.
um, and Saurabh and Devayan hadn't by this time.
And
Um,
you had taken care of your expenses and finance for that. I mean,
it was
this is a question I always ask entrepreneurs. Like,
it was a very very delicate situation. So my wife and I we'd been married for only a few years. We had a 2-year-old son. It was definitely very scary to do it, and had it not been for my wife basically being the pillar of support, saying, go do it. If you really want to do it, go do it.
hmm,
We'll
this
see what happens. Right?
this is classic. I interview so many entrepreneurs, and everybody who has taken the plunge, middle class, first time entrepreneurs, okay, working and taken the plunge, they always depend upon the salary of uh, the the other partner. Okay, so this is like classic case. Okay, then what happened?
So so at this time, what we were tinkering with was a visual recognition system. It sounds very sort of sophisticated, but that at that time it was just OCR. And what we were trying to do is essentially, let's say you were playing a YouTube video on your computer's browser, and you want to walk away from your computer, but you want to keep playing the video on your phone. Right? Today it seems trivial. You open the YouTube app, and in your account you will see that this was in the history, and you can continue playing, right?
Continue playing. Yes, yeah.
It wasn't so trivial back then. So the thing that we ended up imagining was you would have our app on your phone, and you would point your phone's camera at your computer, right? And it would recognize the video and the URL, and it'll basically take you there on your phone, and you start playing it
Ah,
in the browser, in the phone's browser, right? Um,
so this was primarily for video or any website also.
so our initial use case that we were trying to solve was video, right?
Okay,
Could scale to other websites as well.
so
So basically,
video
what we were
as in
doing was
YouTube video, video as in
YouTube video.
YouTube. Okay,
Correct. So what we were trying to do was we were doing two things. We were recognizing the address in the address bar, and
right,
we were looking at the title, right, of the video. So basically, our software would take the photo, identify the URL, identify the title, search for this title on YouTube, and then try to match the URL,
got it,
and then basically take you there.
got it.
That's what we were doing. So we went to another startup weekend in December, and we pitched this idea, and it sounded like sci-fi crazy to people. Uh, and like, how the hell would you make this happen? And we were like, we understand computer vision. So I had done some computer vision work in my college, just for college projects, and Debayan had actually contributed to Tesseract, which is an OCR, open source OCR software. So we did have some understanding. So it at Startup Weekend Delhi. Um, so this time, folks from 500 startups had come as mentors and judges. So we were building this, and so Paul Singh, who used to be a partner at that time with 500 startups, he was assigned as a mentor to our team. And when he saw what we were building, he's like, "How are you guys going to make money out of this?"
Exactly.
And you're like, "We don't know. It's just cool, right?" um, and it's like, why don't you solve app distribution with this, right? People are having a lot of trouble distributing apps and getting their apps downloaded. So what if you could take a picture of my phone screen and download the app that I have on my phone?
Oh, okay.
So it's like, people have to search and stuff like that, and they always forget. What if they could just take a picture and get the app?
Ah, nice.
Uh,
Okay.
so you're like, oh, that sounds interesting. The tech involved was not much different.
Hmm.
Basically, we still, in fact, in this case, it was actually better because we also had the app icon to play with, right?
I see. So it was image
So
search
right,
and name and title of the app. Okay.
exactly. So overnight, we wrote basically a scraper for the App Store, iPhone App Store, and essentially um, indexed all the icons that they had. We wrote a very rudimentary image search based on certain features. Um, trained our recognition engine, and this was before deep learning and all that stuff was
Right.
was popular, right? So it was late 2011.
So you had to hard
Um,
code everything. You had to write your code everything by yourself. So
right. It was
no,
all
no engines
hand
to
built.
use. Hmm.
No. Yeah, OpenCV was the most advanced thing that existed at that time.
Okay.
Yeah, not to say that it wasn't powerful. It was very, very powerful for its time.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, but the actual recognition system, the data structures that we had to build, the search tree and stuff like that, that was all hand built.
Right.
So we built that overnight, and yeah, so we also built an iPhone app using which you could do this, and we started demoing it the next day. We went around the arena and we showed people how it worked, and people were just blown away. Like how, like I think there's a video somewhere on YouTube for this,
Mm.
and it was crazy. And we demoed it. We ended up winning that startup weekend over that weekend, and basically the prize was that we will get to spend 2 days on a trip to Agra with the folks uh, of 500 startups.
So
So they took us on a
Dave
yeah
McClure
yeah
and okay.
yeah. So they were doing this thing called Geeks on a Plane. So they
Ah,
gathered a bunch of entrepreneurs from the valley, and they were taking them all over India. So we spent 2 days with them, and it was quite exhilarating. Like we didn't sleep, uh, and just talking to everyone, like super smart people, tons of experience, tons of industry exposure. We were just in awe of all the awesomeness around us, and we were like, this is it. Like this is what you're gonna do. We're gonna build this company that helps other apps distribute themselves, right? Um, and yeah, the other two also quit at this time, and we went to our previous bosses and we were like, we want to do this, and folks from 500 startups say this is a great thing to do, and you know, can you give us some investment, right?
okay.
So they were like, we don't really understand what you guys are trying to do, but you guys are smart people, you'll figure it out. So here's like $40,000.
From previous organizations, as in Nivio.
Yeah. So my folks that I work with at Nivio. So my VP of engineering over there, and the chief operating officer, and there was someone in the network that sort of wanted to work as chief financial officer for Nivio, but he didn't end up taking up the gig. So these three gentlemen, they ended up investing the initial $40,000 in the company.
Right.
um, and we gave away 12% of the equity in the company
Got it.
for that, right? And at that time, like a lot of people said later that this was a stupid idea. Why so much dilution and stuff like that? Like,
Right.
we had no clue how to run a company, right? And these people had tons of experience. Like Barry had run multiple companies in the valley. Um, Matt was like a super experienced person. He used to run all of DoubleClick's non-US operations. Um, and Wolfgang was, he was the chief financial officer for a joint operations of Philips and ABB in Europe. So like all big people that invested in a bunch of startups, that run startups before,
Right.
and it's like I would trade all the equity in the world to get these guys on board and to have a piece of their mind, right?
Right.
At the very least, I'd learned so much from them, right? And that's what ended up happening. We learned so much from them. So yeah, we started with this app as being the thing that we will build, and you know what we didn't account for was that people needed to have our app in the first place, right? In
Mm.
order to download other apps, right? Um, and we tried it for a couple of months, and it didn't really work out. But in this process, what we had done is, like, we obviously had the $40,000 in the bank, but we'd also built a seriously powerful technology which could see what's inside pictures. Um, and so in 2012, um, around I think March or April, IPL was happening, and I remember watching the game and thinking, like, they have these logos on helmets and bats and those boundary things. They're obviously not doing it for people in the stadium, right? Because those people can't even see like what's on a helmet or what's on a bat, right? They're obviously
Yes.
doing it for people who are watching on the TV,
TV. Yes. Yeah.
right? And then I was like, how do they measure the ROI on this thing, right? They're obviously spending so much money. How do they measure the ROI?
ROI of the
Uh,
ads. ROI of
of
the
the
ads.
Yeah, like if I'm putting my logo on a bat versus in the stand versus on the helmet versus on the back,
Right.
right? Like IPL was the first time when this became like mainstream, right? Like putting your brand logos all over the place. Like the player was branded top
Right.
to bottom,
Right.
right? And I was like, how do they measure the ROI, right? So I started looking at companies that did this. So I found this company called so there's a Nielsen subsidiary in India called TAM, Television
Yeah.
Audience Measurement.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah. So I found that TAM did sports analytics, and there was a page on their website that basically had things like this game, this brand, these many seconds, visibility on screen, and stuff like that. It's like, how are you guys doing this, right? So I called them up. I called the number that was listed on the website, and I said, I want to speak to your head of sports analytics. The name was also given, and the guy on the phone is like, "Who are you?" And I said, I'm the founder and CEO of Uber Labs. Uber Labs was the name of the company.
Right.
And he's like, "Sorry, sir, I'm patching you," right? And he patches me through. So I speak to this lady. I tell her, I saw this on your website, and I'm really curious about how you guys do it. We have a piece of software that can do this automatically, right?
Mm.
And she's like, "You're in luck. We're looking for vendors to help us do this. Why don't you come over and show us what you have?" Right.
So help
Um,
us do what? What was your idea? So how would you what would you do?
so what we had was a piece of technology that could identify what's in a picture, right?
That's
And
correct.
video is nothing but a series of frames, series of
Okay.
pictures, right?
Right.
So my thought was, using our software, we could do this automatically, right? Like how many, like if a logo was present in a frame, we could see where it was. We could see how much screen space did it occupy, and over the course of a video, we could see
You would create
how much
analytics.
time duration exactly, right?
Okay.
Um, so they were like, "Why don't you come and show it to us?" We obviously didn't have everything stitched out. We only could recognize one frame at a time. So I said, "I'm busy this week. I'll come over next week." Right. So we took the week and we actually built it. And
So you upload a video, and then for that duration of the video, you have identified a certain image, and that image analytics in terms of space of the video, in terms of duration, is something that you would present at the end. Okay, got
yeah,
it.
yeah. Let me see if I can actually find that video for you.
Yeah, you can share
Um,
your screen as well,
so,
or maybe pass the link. I could share it.
oh yeah, there it is. Um, I'm going to send it in the private chat.
Yeah, you can send it, and I will share the video.
There it is.
Okay, and then let me share it for our audience. Uber Labs video analytics demo. So is this
Hi, my name is Deobrat, and I'm a co founder of Uber Labs.
Yeah, you
I'm
can
going to
turn the
show
audio
you
off.
how to
So
use our
cringy.
groundbreaking technology to generate analytics information from videos. When you log into the dashboard, the first thing you will see is the History tab, where you can see all the videos or pictures you've already analyzed. In this case, we don't have any previous tasks, so we'll go ahead and try to create a new one. To analyze a video, the first thing you need to do is to train the engine. It basically means you need to tell our software which logos to look for in the video. Let's try and do that from the Train tab. On the Train tab, click on the Add Image button. For the purpose of this demonstration, we will use a logo of the Coca-Cola company. At this point, the engine has been trained and is ready to analyze videos or pictures. Let's try to process a video by going to the Process Video tab. Similar to how we added an image in the Train tab, we can add a new video for processing by clicking the Add a Video Task button at the top. We can provide a name for the task and then provide a URL to a video from YouTube or Vimeo.
wow?
Then click on Save Changes. The video will start getting processed and you will see a progress bar. If you now go to the History tab, you can see that the task we just added is processing. Going back to our task, you can now see that the score for our logo is increasing every now and then. This happens whenever the engine finds a new logo in the video.
Nice.
Let's wait while the processing completes. When the processing has finished, the status indicator will change and notify you of that. At this point, you can click the logo to see the details of all the places in the video where this logo was found. You can very clearly see the exact second-to-second markers of when the logo appeared, thumbnails of those appearances,
Lovely.
and an approximation of how visibly identifiable the logo was in that duration. Scrolling down, we can see all the places where a match was found for the logo.
Oh, this is amazing.
We can click on one of these thumbnails to see the video frame in full size in the frame viewer.
Oh, wow.
We can also quickly move through the frames by clicking the next button on the frame viewer. Thank you for watching this demo. With our groundbreaking technology and tools, we can help you measure your brand's visibility inside videos.
This is the value proposition is so solid here. Yeah. So it was
Yeah. So
processed and the demo is so clear and very one of the better demos. So this is how demo should be. Okay, then what happened?
then, so I showed this live in front of the folks from TAM in Bombay, and yeah, they gave me a couple of videos, said, show it, process it, and it worked. And they were like, we definitely want to try this out. And I asked them like, how do you guys do it right now? Right? And my mind was blown when they told me how they did it at that time. So they said we have 700 people in in
Manually.
Ahmedabad sitting with clickers, right? And they click every time they see a logo, right? In the live feed, and I was like, this is insane. Uh, so that's how they were doing it, and they were looking at other pieces of software as well, where so like in our case, you just uploaded the logo and uploaded the video, and you were done, right? The other piece of software that they were looking at, where you had to play the video, you had to mark the logos in the frames for several frames before the software started recognizing and stuff like that. So it took a lot of manual intervention for it to work. So they were like, let's go ahead and give this a try, right? So we started a trial with them, and then I started looking at ways to basically expand this, right? Like how do I get more customers beyond TAM?
Right.
Uh, and this is where the reality hit one more time. Every company, every brand was buying their TV analytics globally from just one company, Nielsen.
Oh,
Nobody else was in the market,
right.
and and Nielsen obviously was offering much more. Like they had like how many viewers and stuff like that. They have these uh, uh, test audience groups and stuff like that, right? So which
Yeah,
channel was watched how many times. So obviously our data in isolation did not make sense. It had to be paired with how many people actually watched it.
right.
So like what ended up happening was that our overall TAM, overall market size in the world was one customer, Nielsen,
Mm,
and that's not a very comfortable situation to be in.
right.
Um, so anyway, we had gotten some interest from angel investors. We'd gotten a term sheet from a group based in India, and Paul from 500 again visited India, and we talked about here's what we're doing here, and he saw the product, and he saw that we had a term sheet. He's like, this is a global product. You should really be in the US. That's where you should be doing this. Um, and by this time, we had decided that we were actually going to move to social, where we would like we saw that brands were spending a lot of money on analyzing their social content, like how many times Coke is being mentioned in social, for example, right? Social analytics was becoming a big thing, and we thought that visual social obviously will be a massive thing as well, because people are spending a lot of time browsing photos on social media. So Instagram was a relatively new thing back then, but it was growing like 500% month on month in terms of audiences. um, and so we thought, like, if people are spent majority of people's time is spent consuming visuals, then these brands should not be spending money on analyzing text, but they should be spending money on analyzing visuals. And we thought that will be a natural evolution of where that money is going today. So we decided to pivot. 500 ended up investing in
No,
us,
but
and we moved.
why did you pivot? I thought you would extend, no? Because that was also a massive value proposition. So you pivot because there was this one big player that you could not compete with, or how was it?
No. So basically, we thought that social is going to be much bigger than just TV. Like TV was nothing compared to where social was headed,
Okay, okay.
right? Uh, like the
But
amount of time people
TV,
spend watching TVs.
but TV live sports is again massive money, no? People, especially in the US, live sports and all is massive, massive money that is spent on ads. And if they could get an ROI on such ads, such a big value proposition,
Right,
no?
right. So you need to look at how much, what percentage of the spend can you capture, right?
Hmm.
So majority of the spend was getting captured by Nielsen,
Ah,
right?
okay, okay. Hmm.
And you could only take a portion of that,
Right.
right?
Got it.
You could not get a direct relationship with the brand.
Got it. No, my mind was blown with the kind of spend that Super Bowl sports
Yeah,
had. Okay, it's amazing. So that's how I was wondering. You would extend, but even if social is big, but TV live sports is still big. Okay, got it. So you had this
right.
competition, and they had grabbed most of the market share, and that's why. Okay,
Yeah. And again, like, for any company that's starting up, right? Like you gotta have one focus area. And we were just
right,
three people. We couldn't do multiple things.
right,
Um, even if we wanted to, right? Like we had to decide which one to pick and really focus on it.
right,
Um, and we thought that social was a massive opportunity, especially because brands were directly spending on it.
right,
There was no mediator involved in the middle,
right,
and we could directly work with them. So we took the investment from 500 startups, moved to the US, started sort of evangelizing the technology. Obviously, the technology was quite interesting,
right,
right? When you look at the demo, it's super impressive for the time, at which it was built. Um, and so anyone who saw it, like a few journalists saw it, and they started writing about us. And that got interest from. So the first publication that actually mattered for us was Ad Age. Ad Age actually wrote about us.
Yeah.
And then Forbes wrote about us, and those two articles got us a bunch of signups. So we got over 800 people, like brand people essentially, like with email addresses as at coca-cola.com or as nike.com or as adidas.com. Those people started signing up.
So what was the value proposition in social? So it was the gaze metrics had formed now, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
So
and
with
okay,
branded to gaze metrics, and the proposition for social was we will basically identify your brand in social images, right? So if someone shares a picture on Twitter, right, or Instagram, so both Twitter and Instagram had public content at that time, right? So there was no privacy thing on either of these platforms.
right,
So anything you share on Instagram, it's public. Anything you share on Twitter, it's public.
right,
So we would basically so both Twitter and Instagram had sort of fire hoses at that time. So you would basically get images, streams of images from both these platforms, and process them and identify brand logos inside them, right? So you could see Starbucks, Coke, Nike, all of that.
got it,
So the proposition was that we will basically identify your brand and let you know statistics about it. Right. So I think
got
I
it.
have a
For a
I have a
certain
video.
traffic also. I mean, so because again, I mean, the brands could be all over the place. So did you have like a certain filter in terms of okay, which demographic, which geography, and which event maybe or something like that?
No, no, nothing of that nature. Like it
Oh,
was super rudimentary.
okay.
If you, I'll
So
share the
global.
video with you. Maybe don't play it right now, but put it in the stream somewhere
Description.
where people
I,
can watch it.
I will put it in the description. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So this one was basically like it was a very ugly demo, to be honest.
Right,
All it had was a bunch of logos as styles, and if you
right,
click on that logo, it would show you all the pictures that it had seen of
right,
that particular brand in social streams. So there was no sort of second level metric to it, no dimensions to it. Where
got it,
was it shared? How many followers did this person have? None of that stuff. But the idea in itself was super interesting to brands, and that's why they started signing up.
got it.
So we were very transparent with the first set of brands that we started working with. We were like, look, we know it's interesting, we know it's fascinating,
Right,
but we don't know the first thing about what is really interesting to you. Like, what kind of metrics do you really want?
right.
So we won't charge you for using this product. Why don't we work with you? Why don't you give us your time and help us understand what this product really needs to be,
Ah,
right?
okay. And
And we took.
who were these customers? Who were these customers with whom you wanted to work with and learn?
So the most notable of them was Coke.
I see. Hmm.
So we had this person from Coca-Cola, and he was super interested in sort of seeing this through, and he was like, "I'll give you time." So we started working with them. We basically gave them free access to the product. Week on week, we started having calls like, "Okay, this is working. This is not working. This is more that is needed," and stuff like that.
Right,
So it took us about a year and a half to actually build it to a point where Omri called me one day and he's like, we want to put our skin in the game. We want to start paying you guys,
right,
right? And so it started with a very simple $25,000 pilot project for 3 months,
right,
and they said, how many seats do we get in this pilot? I was like, as many as you want. We'll not put a cap, right? Because my goal was like, so far it's been you who has been using this. Let's get it to as many people as possible. And I knew by this time that Coke worked with agencies a lot.
right. Got it. Mhm.
And my goal was to basically get access to these agencies, get the software used by these agencies, and then we could expand to other brands from them, right? Because obviously Coke is not the only brand they are working with.
Right,
Um, yeah, so that's what we did, and the contract expanded from the $25,000 pilot to $150,000 in annual contract, and then soon after that it went to 250K. So it was a very sort of interesting transition from being a one person, one customer product
right.
thousands of users, and um, six figures in contract size.
Right. And then what happened?
So so obviously, we were building this and it was working, but one additional thing that happened was, um, machine learning started becoming super popular.
Right.
Around August 2012 is when this paper called ImageNet was, like, in the ImageNet competition. Um, uh, one particular neural network competed, and they had used GPUs to run convolution neural networks, and that changed the game for machine learning in general. Like, everyone sort of realized that you could do complex things on GPU,
Right.
and we also transitioned on GPU after that, and suddenly, like, a lot of, like, the art of being able to see inside images and videos started becoming commoditized.
Right.
And by the time 2015 rolled in, uh, you know, it was it was becoming very difficult to sort of keep your competitive edge in
Right.
terms of how accurate you were, and stuff like that.
Right.
Um, because AWS was starting to offer, like, use our own APIs. You don't
Right.
have to even build anything, right, and things like that. So you're like, it's time to sort of figure out, find a home for this technology, and
Right.
move on from this. The other part also was that we were selling to marketers, right? And apart from, like, Coke is an exceptional company when it comes to marketing. They live and breathe marketing. Like, that's all they do practically. Um, so other than them, most of the brands that we were working with, marketers, we were basically selling measurement to marketers, right?
Right.
And marketers don't like to be measured. So it was a very, very sort of difficult situation to be in, at least passion wise. Like, you're trying to add value to people as an entrepreneur, right?
Right.
And if the person that you're trying to add value to doesn't really appreciate the value that you're offering, uh, then the interests were misaligned. Like, marketers wanted to look good in front of their bosses,
Right.
and not really actually have, like, real analytics and critical analytics. So it was a difficult situation to be in, just mentally for me. So what we did was, we looked at some partners, uh, who potentially um, could acquire us. So we started with a list of companies that we had common customers with, uh, right? So who played a role in the social space, tangential to us, and Sysomos ended up being the company that saw the value, and moved really, really fast on getting the acquisition closed. Um, yeah, it felt right, and we went ahead and did it. So 2015 is when we ended up selling the company to Sysomos.
Okay. And was it public? Like, for what valuation was it sold?
So it wasn't a massive number, and let me see, how many years has it been? No, I still can't disclose the number.
7 years.
Yes,
You still can't. Okay.
yeah.
Uh, all right. And how did you feel
So it was,
getting it acquired? Because you were looking for an exit anyways, isn't it?
yeah. So I knew for a fact that, although it was good business, I didn't feel very passionate about what I was doing, right? Like, the first time I wanted to start, it was all about, I have to do something on my own, right? That was the thought.
Right.
But by this time, I had realized that it also matters, to do what you really care about.
Right.
Um, so the technology was exciting, people were lovely, and I loved my uh, customers, because, like, they were at the forefront of defining what marketing really meant, right?
Right.
Like, how do you communicate, how do you understand what people are thinking, and stuff like that. So I learned a ton from them, but at the same time, I was not super passionate about the problem that the company was solving.
Got it.
um, And the other thing was the two things that I especially wanted to learn, which I couldn't at Case Metrics, was so one thing was building a sales engine. So at Case Metrics, when we got bought, um, we were all of 9 people, right? So and I was along with another person. We were just 2 people trying to actually sell the software.
Right.
Um, so there was no sort of automated sales engine, no method to that madness.
Right.
And the other thing that I wanted to learn was how do you scale culture? Because again, like with 8 or 9 people, you can kind of manage the culture organically.
Right.
But once you cross 10 people, once you cross 25 people, once you cross 50 people, like at all these inflection points,
So how
you
many
have a
people
different
when you
cultural problem.
when you sold, how many people were at Case Metrics then?
Just nine, just nine.
Okay.
Yeah. So with 9 people, you could do it organically, right? And it was a great culture. People loved working with each other. Um, but uh, but I knew for a fact that if it grew from 9 to let's say 15 or 20, I would have a hard time sort of scaling that same culture
Got it.
because the culture that existed in Gaze Metrics was not because I was very deliberate about it. It
Right.
existed the way because it organically evolved because of the people that were around,
Got it.
right?
So then,
Um,
so after you sold out, I mean, if after you sold your company, did you take a break, or was because I'm very excited also to talk a bit about Backstage Army. So did you have your next idea already brimming in your mind, or you you took a break and then figured out what to do next?
so I didn't have the next idea in mind. Obviously, there was a lot of load off my head, and I started thinking about a lot of different things. But but there was no sort of epiphany. Yeah, this is what I want to do. Types, right? Nothing sparked. And there was also another thing that started happening at the same time. Um, I went into a massive cycle of depression. I haven't talked about this publicly, but anyway, let's do this. I think I'm ready now. Um, what happened was all my life I never had money. Right? It was
Mhm.
always hand to mouth,
Right.
and I always assumed that if I have money, I'll be happy.
Mhm.
Right? That'll be my license to be happy. And after the company was sold, I had money, right? And I did basically things that you do with money: spend it, go and take international vacations, buy expensive cars, buy a house, all of that stuff. And the expectation in my own mind was that all of this will make me happy, right?
So
And
first of all, to clarify, were you able to take expensive vacations? Were you able to buy an expensive car and a house?
yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
I bought an Audi, I bought a Mercedes, I bought
You
a,
got
a
two cars.
300. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. um, I bought a 360K house in the US, right? It was, we were going to Mexico, Hong Kong, like Bahamas, all of that, right? Um, and but progressively, I started realizing that none of this was actually making me happy, and it started worrying me. Um, to a point that, like at my lowest point, I had convinced myself somehow that I don't deserve to be happy.
Oh, you don't
It was
deserve.
very, very,
That's an
yeah.
extreme, huh?
It was that was the lowest point. Um, and like I still remember the moment that this thought hit me. Um, and so then I started doing a lot of introspection as to what really sort of makes me happy. Actually, before this, after I hit my sort of rock bottom, started talking to some people around me that I could open up with. And during this time, I'd stopped talking to basically anyone. Uh, I'd stopped calling my family, in fact.
Hmm.
Um, was not in touch with my friends. None of that was happening. Um, but the people who were physically around me, I opened up to some of them, and they told me, start exercising, start meditating, and I started doing that, and obviously, like that started helping me get centered a little bit. Um, and I started then sort of with some clarity, started thinking about what really matters to me, right? Because happiness is not something that I can treat as a goal. It has to be a process. Um, and I explained to myself like something like happiness in a very, very mathematical term. Like when you like most of us when we see happiness, we see of like if you chart your emotions on a curve, right? And you take the first order derivative, you essentially see spikes, right? And most of us treat those spikes as happiness,
Yep.
right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, this happened, I was happy. That happened, I was happy.
Yeah.
And I realized that is not how you should look at life, right? Or that's not how I should look at life. Like I can't preach to other people, right? But that is how I explained it to myself.
Right.
Um, and so for me, the definition of happiness changed from looking like it being based on certain goals to being based on here and now. Like what are you doing right now? Are you fulfilled right now?
Right.
And then I started thinking about at what makes me feel fulfilled, right? Um, and so the answer for me was like I want to do something that helps other people do what they want to do.
Hmm.
um, and then I was like, let me start with people close to me, right? And who closer to me than my own wife and my son.
Right.
And then by this time, like my son was 10, and I'd started thinking about. I think most fathers go through this phase where they start thinking about, what kind of a world am I leaving for the next generation, right? Like
Right.
where my children are going to live.
Right.
Um, and So those kind of thoughts were going around in my mind, and I was on a break. I remember in April 2019, I'd come back to India with my wife and son, and I was talking to him, and I was like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And his first answer was, I want to become a theoretical physicist, which computed well in my head. I was like, okay, this makes sense. This is what we talk about at home. We talk about math and science and physics all the time. Um, I mean that's one of our most shared interests. Um, but then after a few minutes, he's like, maybe also YouTuber, right? And so I was a little surprised. I'd obviously heard the term YouTuber. I thought I knew what it meant, but I never imagined that someone in my vicinity would say that they wanted to become a YouTuber. And when he said that, I was obviously surprised, but that surprise turned into curiosity. Like, how do you actually become one, right? What does it take to become a YouTuber? And in order to basically try and help him become one, I basically stumbled into this whole space. And what I discovered just boggled my mind. The first thing was that my son was not alone, right? He was one among millions of kids. So I found a survey that Lego had done, just like I think a year before this happened, where they had asked kids this same question, like kids between 8 to 16 year old,
Right.
like what do you want to become when you grow up?
YouTuber was
Um,
one of the popular answers.
YouTuber, musician, TV anchor, artist, athlete, right? And when I say artist, like painter and photographer, all of this, all humanities based professions.
Ah, okay. Hmm.
And so I was like, a lot of kids want to do this, but obviously it will be very difficult for them to actually do it
Hmm.
as a career, right?
As a
Because
career.
it's like where will you get money, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, but that was dispelled very soon. So I started hanging out with a lot of YouTubers online and offline, trying to figure out, what do they do, how do they do it,
Right.
and what I discovered again, like this was uh, eye opening. So the first thing was when I imagined the term YouTuber back then, my thought process was that these people are doing it for fame,
Right.
right? To get attention. I couldn't be more wrong.
Hmm.
what I realized was that all of these people were passionate about something in their life, right?
Right.
Could be anything, could be electricity to woodworking, to making shoes, to living healthy, right? Or understanding sleep, uh,
Right.
just random stuff. They were
Right.
passionate about something in life, and they were using the internet to find people who were passionate about the same thing,
Right. A
right?
tribe.
That's their own tribe, and that's really what YouTube enabled, right? um, and obviously, using this, they some of them had figured out how to actually make a living out of it,
Right.
and others wanted to figure out how to make a living out of it,
Right.
right? So then I realized that what my son's generation wants, right? Like they want to make a living out of whatever it is that they're passionate about today, right? Or could be passionate about later.
Right.
It was actually, at least theoretically, it was possible
Right.
because some people had proven that it could be done,
Right.
right? And the other cultural phenomena that I observed was that people's sense of identity had changed.
Right.
Like when we were growing up, our identities were very physical. Like I'm from Chennai, or I speak this particular language, or I go to this particular college, right? I'm Indian. It was all very, very physical sort of identity attributes. But by this time, by 2015, 2016, 2017, like these time frames, people's identity had actually evolved. Now you could, like, no matter how weird you were, like you could find your own people on the
Right.
internet,
Right.
right? And
Right.
you could be comfortable with your own true
Skin.
identity, which was disconnected from your physical world.
Right.
Um, so essentially, and the other thing that I found out about YouTubers specifically was that all of them were entrepreneurs, right?
Mm.
But none of them knew how to go about doing it. So it reminded me like way back in 2001 when I was trying to do software
Right.
company. I was like, I had no clue how to do this,
Right.
just winging it, right? And it reminded me so much of myself
Right.
back in the day. And I was like, if I had information and if I could connect with people who were like-minded and who were trying to do similar things, and I
Right.
could learn from them, it wouldn't have taken me 10 more years to start a real company,
Right.
right? And then I was like, today internet is ubiquitous, everyone has access to it, why don't we sort of try to do something over here? So I decided that I wanted to basically spend the rest of my life trying to make this happen, right?
Mm.
Like where people are doing what they love to do, finding people who love the same thing,
Right.
and then building these tribes, and building small communities that transact with each other, and
Right.
and help each other and grow together.
Right.
Didn't know how,
Right.
but I knew that this is the thing that I wanted to do.
So you
So
wanted you you wanted to enable people to able to do this seamlessly, isn't it? With
exact. I mean, so my target audience was one, honestly. Like I
hmm,
wanted to make this happen for my son,
for your son.
right?
Okay.
And through, like, in an extended way, basically everyone in his generation.
Right.
um like if this kind of a world could exist for my son and other people like him,
Right.
um I think that will be a beautiful world.
Of course. Yeah. So
And
you're enabling them to
that's
self express. Okay. It's a
exactly,
medium of self expression on something that you are very passionate about. Uh,
absolutely. I mean, the desire to belong and the desire to express, they're very, very sort of intrinsic to human nature,
right.
right? And if we could somehow find a way to nurture this and channel this in a way that people can make a living out of it, right?
Right.
At least don't starve, right? Like most artists end up starving, and they need to sacrifice on their principles, their morals, to sort of make a living
Yeah.
in some other way. So I'm not saying that everyone would become a millionaire, everyone would become a Carrie Minati or a Mr. Beast, right? But at least make a respectable living where you at least do what you love to do, and have fulfillment in life.
Right.
So that's the sort of genesis of Creator Stack. So I sold everything that I owned, and moved my ass back to India. because this is where my people were. This is where I knew people. This is where people knew me, to start this company again.
Okay, I'm just sharing the website is very catchy, huh? Very attractive. So let me just share that. So it says, and okay, this is it says the super club for you, super fans, and your audience becomes super fans inside backstage. So maybe could you distill this down into simple use case, like, okay, if I am trying to build my audience, what is it that backstage offers me?
Right. So what we do is we don't focus on, like, creators have four broad category of problems. Right. One
Mm,
is um, basically creating content, like building. Right.
right.
That is not something that we focus on. There are plenty of tools that help creators with that. Right.
Are you
So, like,
talking
for
about
example, you're
video,
using.
only YouTube video creators, or any kind of creator?
So for us, the definition of creator is anyone who is creating value in society, right?
Okay.
Uh,
Hmm.
and and this, and using the internet to sort of communicate this value,
Got it.
right? So basically packaging it in a way that it can be consumed by people on the internet. There are plenty of tools. Like video is
Okay.
the most sort of intuitive form of communication.
Right.
So let's say video. Or could be audio, could be something else. It could be Twitter as well, right? There are plenty of tools that help you create content.
Right.
Uh, and there are also plenty of tools that help you distribute content, right? That's
Right.
a very efficient market right now. So you have YouTube, you have TikTok, Instagram, right?
Right.
uh, so plenty of platforms to distribute.
Right.
What is really lacking is basically building a business out of this henceforth, right? So essentially, how do you, so when you get a subscriber on YouTube, for example, right? Let's say you've convinced 100,000 people to click on that subscribe button.
Right.
um, they are your customers in a way, right? They are your
Right.
tribe.
Right.
How criminal is it that you actually don't have the ability to know who they are? You have no way to message them. You have no way to actually deepen that relationship. You have no control over that relationship,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
And this extends to every platform. I'm not saying that YouTube is evil or anything of that nature. Obviously, the business model is different, and they've done a great job at enabling this ecosystem overall. But I think if you think from a purely from a creator perspective, what they need is the ability to have a direct relationship, right? And to be able to quantify this relationship, like, you are my super fan, for example, you've been great, you've contributed so much to my growth, right? And some way of measuring the depth of relationship, right?
But
And some way of actually.
a lot of this relationship is controlled by the platform, no?
Currently, yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Hmm. Like it
It
limits to
just.
what, how much you can engage, and it limits to. Okay, so I get it. I suddenly saw an aha moment that yes, this is a massive value proposition, because there's no way for me to analyze or segment the kind of fans or the followers that I have, say from the most passionate to most dispassionate, and something of that sort. I have no clue. It's just a random, invisible crowd that I know, but nothing more than that.
Right, right. And more than that, right? You have no control over that either, right? There is no way for you to take a somewhat engaged fan
Right,
and make investment in that relationship and convert them into being a super fan,
right,
right? Like if you know this person, you could,
right, right,
right? But since there is no way, there's this opaque layer,
right,
you have no control over that relationship. So
right,
what we do is we help creators basically a take control of this relationship,
right.
b give them ways to sort of deepen this relationship, um, and c give creators a way to sort of create a monetization stream outside of algorithm dependency, right?
Okay. Mhm.
So that's for creators. For fans, um, essentially what fans want in this relationship is basically access to the creator, right?
That's
That's essentially it. And through the mechanics that we've built inside our platform, what happens is fans actually get rewarded for their fandom, right? And the more they invest in making this relationship deeper, they get better access to the creator. So it's a very symbiotic relationship.
Better access, sometimes more exclusivity, and like I mean, I was exploring the NFT space. So there is NFT music, right? So wherein the biggest fans would want to own the source of that music in collaboration with the creator of the music, so that you can
Right.
actually display with pride that I own this favorite singer's original music as an NFT. So these are exclusive partnership that you would give to your most passionate, say, fans and stuff like that.
Right. So NFT is a way for sort of recording this particular relationship, right? Like saying, okay, this is like what I can frame on my wall, right? Um, but that just represents the transaction, right?
Right.
It doesn't represent what went into actually having that relationship.
Hmm.
So what we are focusing on is actually making sure that people get rewarded for not actually just paying money to the creator, but
Right.
actually being a fan in itself,
Right.
and sort of creating value for the creator, right? So a lot of creators that are on our platform actually get so much help from their fans. So fans are helping them create new content or come up with ideas or actually like help edit videos, or come up with thumbnails,
Right.
do their travel itineraries, like a whole
Yeah,
bunch
yeah.
of things, right?
I
So
have seen that. If they're a if they're a stand-up comedian or something of that sort, they would help them sell tickets in their own hometown so that they can come and do the show.
absolutely,
So
absolutely,
yeah. Okay,
yeah.
got it.
So if you want to oversimplify this, right? I'm sure you're familiar with BTS.
Yes.
Um, so what BTS has shown is that BTS currently is valued at, I think, close to $9 billion,
Wow.
somewhere around in that range. And when they listed, they were at $4.5 billion, back in December 2020. And what you see with that, like obviously
What
a
do you mean by
band being
listed?
valued,
What do you mean by listed? They are a music band. Are they public?
they are public.
Oh.
So imagine
Mind.
that, right? Like a music band, like stock markets value consistency, right? That's
Okay.
what the valuation is based on. And
Okay.
a music band having that kind of value, like you would think that it means that the music band somehow has a formula for always producing great music.
Right.
But everyone knows intuitively that's impossible,
Hmm.
right? So what's going on here, right? So
Right.
the valuation is not for the music that they produce. The valuation is for the fandom that they have. When they
Ah.
produce a song, when they create a song, right? The BTS army, they self-identify as BTS army, right? The BTS army makes sure,
Self-identified as in the fans are called BTS Army or the BT? Okay.
yes,
Ah,
the
okay.
fans are called BTS army. So they
Ah.
make sure that the song reaches top charts in every single country on every single streaming app
You
on the
know,
first day.
you have been in Hyderabad. Telugu film industry works like this. No matter how shitty the movie is, their
Exactly.
their fandom will ensure that it's a great opening. Okay, there will be a lot of
Right.
ruckus. There are these fan clubs who ensure that it's a great opening and at least goes to make it a hit. And okay, now I've
Right, right.
okay, got it, got it.
So now imagine if every creator had the ability to cultivate their own BTS army,
Wow.
right? So I'm
Yeah.
not saying every creator will become a $9 billion company, right? But
Yeah.
even if it's a $90,000 company or a
Right.
$900,000 company, right? It's a living. It's a great living.
That's
Um,
beautiful. Yeah, it's a aha moment for me. So the value comes from your fan base, huh? That is they
exactly,
have value
because
to.
like think about any business, right? Like
Yeah,
traditionally,
customers. Yeah,
uh,
customers. Your first 1,000 most passionate customers. So any business, any product, okay, there is somebody who appreciates them, whether it is an art or whether it is a product like Apple. Okay, so there is a fan base, right? And the value is derived from how passionately how good is your NPS scores, or how good is your lovable
Exactly.
score. Okay, so I understand it. Okay, got
Right,
it.
right. Yeah. The depth of relationship, right? So,
Depth of
so
relationship.
like
Okay,
your long-term value is a product of or a function of number of customers and the loyalty that they have, right?
right,
Same is true for creators. They're not many different. They're basically a business.
right.
But I think the beautiful thing about what we can do today is the business doesn't have to be just one person. It is a massively collaborative world where like the lines between fans and fans and creators sort of start to get blurred, where they become
Blurred.
one team, one entity.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So you're creating a platform to facilitate this future where you allow this collaboration mode to happen to build this army. Um, and how do you do that? Maybe, I mean, of course, you do not want to reveal it. Maybe it's still in ideation or formation. But how does the platform work? Like, people sign up as a creator, and then
So let's
you
say, let, I'll give you an example. Let's say you sign up as a creator, right?
right,
And so what you do is you create your backstage, and then you tell your fans on, let's say, your YouTube channel, saying, hey, if you want a real relationship, if you want to hang out, if you want to know more, what I do, how I do it, and sort of be involved, come and hang out with me on my backstage, right? And then people then apply to be part of your backstage.
okay.
um,
So
and
I
when
see
they
some
apply,
yeah, go ahead.
so when you see the application, you basically see they also submit a reason why they should be part of your backstage, right? So they tell you things like, I've been your subscriber for X number of years, for example, or I love this aspect of what you do, and I want to be involved in that aspect, and stuff like that. So you
So
start to
there is a
build up.
face. There is a
Yeah,
face for every fan, which is
right,
non-existent as of now. It's a
right.
crowd. Yeah.
Plus you know the context, plus you know their context. Why do they see this relationship as valuable?
Lovely. Lovely, because I've seen, so it's not the concept of backstage, but I've seen YouTubers try to do these meetups, okay, where the fans come in from a certain city, and then they talk, but that is not scalable. Okay, you can only meet so many. Okay, but what you are trying to create here is a platform where there's no limit. Everybody gets to hang out, and everybody gets to exchange and then talk. Oh, I think it's brilliant. So what stage is backstage.army now?
So we've been sort of co-building the product with a handful of creators for the past year or so.
Got it.
Handful of creators, a handful of their fans, and like just about a month ago, February 7th is when we started opening it up to more creators and more fans.
Got it.
So we still have a small number of creators live, but we are expanding the number of fans that we have on the platform. So every backstage used to have 15, 20 fans. And now, like, we have backstages with 400 plus fans on the platform. And yeah, it's just amazing to see the sort of relationships flourishing on the platform. The and when someone comes in, like, so if you look at the number of obstacles that we throw in the face of fans for them to come in, like, first they have to come and apply to be part of this, then they have
Yes.
to download an app, and then they become part of this, right? It's super thrilling to watch the number of people who are actually crossing all these obstacles and
Right.
getting in, and then getting involved,
Got it.
and then doing all the activities.
Yeah.
um, and they're spending a crazy amount of time as well. So each fan spends about half an hour in the app. And the way the app works is, like, as a fan, you don't see other backstages. Like, if you're a part of Ravi's backstage, you only see Ravi's backstage. You
Got
like
it.
The app doesn't promote other backstages and stuff like that. Right? So
Got
it's a
it.
very intimate relationship where you are with your tribe. It's a
Right.
very, very intimate experience,
Yes.
and you can be open with them. You can be yourself. Like, it's just an amazing experience being in there as a fan. Um, and yeah, and in hindsight, it makes sense that they're spending so much time, because they're spending time with their own kind.
Right. Excellent, Deobrat. I'm being mindful of time. We have already overshot by 10 minutes past 90 that I had promised you. So I can never hold back on my questions because I'm so curious about everybody's journey. But the way you have shared your journey, there's so much to learn. Okay, so how to latch on to opportunities, how to match your what you're passionate about and add meaning to it, and then how do you derive and identify your next big opportunity. How did you pivot your ideas, and how did you make those big bets? How did you go outside of your comfort zone and do things differently, which many others don't do? So got to learn a lot, Deobrat. Thanks again for your time, and also being intimate. You shared about some of your own challenges, your bout of depression, which not many people open up. But all of these things, I feel privileged that you opened up on this conversation. Thank you so much, Deobrat, for your time.
No, thanks for giving me this opportunity to talk, Ravi. Yeah, it it had been difficult for me in the past to talk about all the difficult times that I went through. Obviously, because there is a sense of uh, uh, survivor's guilt as well. Like a ton of people are facing depression at this time. Like, and if anybody looked at my life from the outside, they'd be like, this guy is like super crazy happy right now, right? And when you come out and say like you're depressed, and like, so fear of being judged is a massive obstacle. That is why I hadn't been able to talk about it before. Actually, to be really honest, a lot of the communities that are being built on Backstage, it gives me a lot of inspiration to be true to my own identity and be comfortable with my identity and just be open about it. So all thanks to the creators and fans who are currently on Backstage in helping me talk through all of this.
Excellent, and all the best for your future. I'll be keenly observing backstage.army, and let me also check out. So I'm a creator myself, so let's see what options do I have as well. Thanks again,
Absolutely.
Dave.
Thanks a lot, Ravi.
See you around. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.